Okay, so in this week's lesson, we're going to be talking about Mixolydian scale, or Mixolydian mode, and how you can use this scale to create an outside sound, get that out of the box sound. I always love it when I hear a musician doing that. They play something totally out of the box and it's a nice surprise to the ear, especially when you hear it kind of go outside and then back right where, where it's supposed to. So I'm going to give you some examples of how to do that, and I did that in the solo that I played in the intro. We're going to take that entire solo and break it all down. I'll show you where all those notes come from, and you'll see that it's really just the Mixolydian scale mixed with some minor pentatonic scale stuff. And we're going to compartmentalize it and break it down into chunks so that it makes it easy. And once you can see this entire solo into little pieces, it's really not that difficult to do. So it'll be a fun little project for you to take those pieces, fit them together, and be able to play that lead. And more importantly, understand where all the notes come from so that when you're improvising or you're writing or composing, you're able to use some of these ideas and just take them in your own direction. That's what I'm really hoping you can do. So I'm going to split this lesson into two parts. In this video, we're going to go through the first half of what I played. If you'd like to watch the second half or explain that, get the tablature for both, get the MP3 jam tracks for the entire thing, and also have access to the on-screen tab viewer, which has the tab and the video on the screen at the same time. There's no talking in it. It's interactive. You can slow down the playback. You can loop sections. It's a great way to learn and sort of recap everything we're talking through. You can get all those extras for this lesson by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for EP625. Okay, so this song is a kind of just a simple little jam in the key of A, and there's 3 chords in it, at least in this video. We're just going to look at 3 chords, an A, a G, and a D. And I'm playing them kind of like this. Just keeping that groove. Now I'm going to do a separate lesson on how to play this rhythm. That's coming maybe next week. So if you're interested in that, we'll break that down. But in this video, we're just going to talk about the lead stuff. So that's what I'm playing. Now the song is in the key of A. And when you see a G chord in the key of A, that doesn't really fit. That's not a chord in the chord family of A. So it's a borrowed chord in that respect. The D is actually in the key of A, obviously. That would be your 4 chord. But when I hear that sound, this sound, or more specifically, when I hear the 1 chord going down 2 frets and playing that major chord, what I'm hearing is the flat 7. So here's my A, there's the flat 7. That would be the note that you play for an A7 chord, like an A dominant 7. That note. So when I hear that, even though it's just a major chord, it's a G chord, I think of that chord as a flat 7 chord in this context. That's just how I hear it. And so if I hear this going on, or any variation of the 1, and you go down 2 frets, this kind of thing, just repeating those 2 chords, I'm still hearing the same scale. I'm hearing that flat 7. And so the perfect scale to play in that situation is the Mixolydian scale. Now, Mixolydian scale is just your major scale, but you flat the 7. That's it. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat the 7. And that's the sound of Mixolydian. And the reason that flat 7 works so well when you hear that chord down here is because that flat 7 note is in that chord. And so it's just sort of a perfect fit. The flat 7 note is also in your minor pentatonic scale, so it starts to kind of connect some of these things. But anyway, it's that major scale with the flat 7. Now I've got a whole other lesson, and I'm going to consider this lesson a prerequisite to this course. So I'm going to put that lesson up on the screen. In that lesson, I go into a lot of detail about Mixolydian scale, how to play it, how to play through it quickly so that you can just buzz. You can buzz right through it, without thinking about it. There's a dance that your fingers have to do, and it's really the dance of the major scale. But anyway, that's all discussed in that lesson, so you're going to want to check that out as a prerequisite. Now, if you already understand Mixolydian scale, and you don't need to watch that, you just want to learn some of these outside licks, then just stick to this video. But anyway, that's the prerequisite for this lesson. This is sort of an expansion of that. In fact, this jam track sounds very similar to the jam track I used in that previous lesson. A little different, but same key. So you can use the licks from that other one and work them into this. So you got now like an extended solo. Okay. Let's listen to the first phrase that I play here, and then we're going to talk about what's going on there. Okay, so that first lick starts off with. Now that note that I ended on there, that 5th fret 4th string, that's your flat 7. That's that note. Now it's an octave lower than here, but it's the same note. It's your G note. But you want to train your ear to hear that sound. Hear the sound of this against the root. That is an important sound. Now, one way you might want to just kind of work into it is doing the old bass. There it is. You know that sound, right? But that sound is the sound of the flat 7. It's in the blues, it's in Mixolydian, it's in everything that you love. All the good soul stuff is the sound of that. So this first little lick that we're gonna play here is just the Mixolydian scale, but it's in the G position. It's played over an A chord, but when I say G position, I'm thinking about my G shape from the Cage system. So here's my A chord, here's my G shape. Now I can't make that full chord shape, so I just break it into parts. I look at like the top part and then the bottom part. That's how I've always thought about that chord. It doesn't make sense to try and do it all at once. But inside of that, I've got a real easy access to my A Mixolydian. Check this out. If I started with my root note with my pinky, it's very symmetrical. And the way that I'm able to quickly go through that and quickly like play this scale without it being any sort of effort is my fingers just know that those are the same notes as my D major scale. Now I'm not thinking D major at all. That would just totally confuse me. But they know the dance of that major scale. And so I take the D part out of it. That's not even relevant. I take the A part out of it. They just know the sound of this. I'm just going off the sound. And from here, I can work out the dance of my fingers. That's the space that you want to try and get to. I know that seems kind of weird, but you're gonna have to trust me. Once your fingers can do that dance, and that's all talked about in that lesson. I'll put it up on the screen again in that prerequisite lesson, the finger dance. Okay, so that first lick then starts with that. That's the first phrase, landing on that flat 7, 5th fret 4th string. Now when I landed on that note, I actually landed with my pinky so that I can come up here and grab 2nd fret 3rd string. Now I'm picturing in my head this A chord here. And then watch this. So after I hit that, I'm gonna do a quick slide from the 5th down to the 4th fret on that 4th string. And then watch this lick. That's a little bluegrass G run kind of lick. But from this A here where I'm barring, I'm just holding that down on the 2nd fret. I'm gonna do a hammer on between the 3rd fret and the 4th fret on the 5th string. And then up to the 2nd fret 4th string, 4th fret 4th string, back to the 2nd fret. So, and then back to the 2nd fret 3rd string. And that little lick is one that I use all the time. Even though it's kind of got its roots in bluegrass, it works in just about everything. And Jerry Garcia was a huge fan of bluegrass, and you'll hear a lot of bluegrass stuff in his playing. That was his sort of main style. And he was such a master at that, and he was able to pull that into the electric lead stuff, which is so cool. So, I actually want to hit that. I might have just went and hit strings 2 and 3. I think I'll probably put that in the tab because I ended up just playing the chord. All right, so this next lick goes like this. Now that seems like a lot, but once you get the phrasing of this down and understand it, you'll be able to use this whole thing as a lick that you can add to your Rolodex of licks. So that's the lick. So it starts like this. And by the way, we're still playing, I'm thinking about my A chord using the E shape. And I'm gonna start off just playing 2 notes out of that E shape. The 3rd, the major 3rd, so I'm sliding from the 5th fret to the 6th fret on the 3rd string, and then the 5th fret 1st string. So you can think of those as two notes out of that triad. Okay, so after this, now watch this. Okay, so it starts with that 5th fret 1st string with an upstroke with the right hand. So after that, I'm gonna come down to the 8th fret 2nd string. That's my flat 7 again, right? That G note again. So we're gonna play that, and then we're gonna go back to the 5th fret 1st string, to the 7th fret 1st string. These notes, by the way, are all in my A Mixolydian scale. So here it is. Put that up on the screen so you can just study it and just learn that in reference to this E shape. You can also think of this as just a blend of your major and minor pentatonic scale, if that makes it any easier. But so we have that, and then we're going to walk down on the 2nd string to 8, 7, 5, and then 7th fret 3rd string back to the 5th fret 2nd string. So let's back it up. We have now, once I get to this 5th fret 2nd string, I'm going to drop my index finger down to the 5th fret 3rd string and do that little move. So 5, 4 on the 3rd string, and then down to the 7th fret 4th string. So all together then. And then we're going to come down to the 4th fret 4th string, and then back to the 7th fret 4th string. And then the last thing that I did to conclude that was another slide to the 3rd, and then I landed on the 5th of my A, which is 5th fret 2nd string. So all together, that phrase. Now that sounds like a lot, and it probably sounds really weird. It feels really weird because we're so used to like our major pentatonic or our minor pentatonic scale, and you're sliding into these notes down here. But these are the notes of that Mixolydian scale in this position. So if you want to get the whole thing, there's one octave, there's the other octave. All right, so this next lick is one of these outside licks that I'm talking about. Now, two things happen there. This first part, that would be the outside sound. That sounds really kind of cool, and those notes are all correct. Those are all notes from my A Mixolydian scale, but the arrangement of them is very odd. Then after that, this, that's really more in my head just playing an A arpeggio. With some extra notes in there, but that's not super out of the box. But this first part, so let's look at the two parts. The first part, so we're gonna start with the 5th fret 4th string, and then we're gonna go to the 4th fret 3rd string, then pinky on the 7th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 2nd string. So play that. And then we're going to go to the 5th fret 2nd string. Now this is one of those really unusual licks that you're not going to hear a lot of people breaking down and explaining to you. Hopefully I'll make it make sense here. But check this out. So we're going to go back to that 7th fret 3rd string. And then the second part to that goes... That's just a slide with my middle finger, starting on the 5th fret 3rd string, sliding up to the 6th fret, and then we're going to go 5, 7, and then 5th fret 1st string. And then once we're up here, we're going to go 8, 7, back to the 5th fret 1st string. That's the last part of it. So when you put the two pieces together, it sounds like that. Now, this first part, that weird sound, that's something that I've heard other guitar players talking about, and I can't remember who said it. It was somebody years ago. They were talking about playing the major 7 arpeggio of that flat 7 chord. So remember when I was talking about the beginning of this, I said we've got our A chord, then I go down 2 frets. That's just how I'm thinking of it, because it's got that flat 7 sound. So that G chord. If I play the arpeggio of that G chord, if I play that in any way over this solo, it's gonna pull the sound into that sort of out of the box sound. I just have to make sure that I resolve back to the A, to either the third of the A or the root. So the trick then is to go do something like that, where I played out of the box by playing that G major 7 arpeggio. And so when I started this lick, that's where that is. That's just a different way to play it instead of doing it like that. I like to kind of, when I learned how to do this, I like to lump it all into the chord shape. It just makes it easy for me to compartmentalize it. So that part was the out of the box part. Now we're gonna pull it back to the A. So hopefully you can hear that we're taking those 2 pieces, and when you put them together, you get this really kind of cool out of the box sound. So after I hit that A, I hit that same note on the 10th fret 2nd string. So I just slid from this A up to here. Now that's just a minor pentatonic lick that I've learned from the blues. So that's where that's coming from. And then I played this lick. I love this lick. It's pretty simple. It's really an A9 followed by some notes from my A Mixolydian scale. So this A9 is that triad that I've talked about a lot. I won't go into the whole detail, but off of this E shape, so there's my A chord using the E shape, on this 7th fret where these 2 fingers are, if I put my index finger there, 7th fret 1st string, 8th fret 2nd string, 9th fret 3rd string, and play that minor triad, when you hear that over the A chord, it's gonna sound like an A9. It's gonna color the sound like an A9. So I just started with a brushing that and then walking right down the A Mixolydian in this position. Okay, so then I came up here and hit this 12th fret 1st string. I played it with my pinky. That's because my hand is gonna, I had my hand in position to do this next lick. But that lick, just hitting that note, is sort of a B.B. King style thing. B.B. would often do the root. So since the song is in A, you need to come up and hit the A. But you don't have to, you can hit any of the notes from the A chord. So I hit my E. And then after that, I played a sort of a classic Tony Rice out of the box lick, which goes. Let me do that again. Isn't that a cool sound? And what you're hearing there is you're hearing this arpeggio, which is my A arpeggio, right? Then I slide that down 2 frets. That should sound familiar. Remember, A chord, you go down 2 frets to your G. So we have, then from here, that's my G arpeggio. So all I'm really doing to create that sound, or at least to root this sound to something, is playing my A arpeggio. There's the D shape, right? That little D triad, D shaped triad. Move that down 2 frets. And you've got your G-shaped triad. So So the trick to this is knowing sort of when to pick and when to slide. So I start off with that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I don't pick that. I just slide that next note from the 9th fret 3rd string down to the 7th fret 3rd string. So we have. Now from here, I'm going to come back up the arpeggio the same way I went down it before. So now from here, I'm going to play. Now these notes are all notes from a Mixolydian scale, but when you hear them like this, it's kind of cool because it's these two. That's all I'm doing is playing like strings 1 and 2 out of this triad. Here's the first one, which is my A, and then I come down 2 frets, and there's my G. But I'm using different fingers for it. So let's back up to the beginning of this. Like, we start here, 9th fret 3rd string with my ring finger and my pinky down on the 10th fret 2nd string, and then my index finger on the 7th fret 1st string, middle finger on the 8th fret 2nd string. So backing up, we have. Now from here, we're gonna play. So after we played that, which would be like the 2 notes out of my G chord, I'm gonna come down with my ring finger to the 9th fret 3rd string, and that would be like a G6, right? A little triad. Down to the 7th fret 3rd string, and then watch this. We're gonna go 6, 7, 9, all on the 3rd string, index finger, middle, pinky, back to the 6th fret 3rd string, and then we're gonna land on the 7th fret 4th string. That's a really hard thing to try and communicate. I'm really struggling to get this out, but hopefully with the tablature, you can rewind this video and watch it. Hopefully you can sort of see that the notes that are being played here are all notes from my A Mixolydian. So that's the lick. And I just love that out of the box sound of hearing the A and then going down, that sort of. That sounds so strange or odd against that A, but it totally works because those notes from my G are notes that are in my A Mixolydian scale. That's why they work. And then I concluded that with, which is really just A major pentatonic scale, right? So I'm starting with my 7th fret 4th string with my index finger, and that's where we ended that previous phrase. We're gonna then slide up to the 9th fret 4th string, and then slide to the 11th fret. And then we're going to jump up to the 3rd string and play 9, 11. So, and then there's my 10th fret 2nd string. And I played it like this. So 12th fret bend, played the 12th fret without the bend, down to the 10th fret, and then the 11th fret 3rd string. And then my index finger came up to the 12th fret 1st string. Now, these notes here, in my mind, I'm just playing my A major pentatonic scale, pattern 4. So that's just sort of where I'm at. And just remember that, even though this is a lesson on Mixolydian, it doesn't mean that once you get into one mode or one scale that you have to stay in that scale for the whole song. You can just do it for a little piece of a song or one little part, and then you can go back to something comfortable like the pentatonic scales or whatever, you know, whatever works for you. But don't ever think about it in terms of I have to follow the scale. Always follow the sound. The sound is what we're really after. And so to me, to my ear, it's that flat 7 mixed with the major 3rd. That's the sound I'm chasing when I'm doing this entire solo. I'm trying to get that sound of the major 3rd and the flat 7, however I can, all over the fretboard. there's that G major 7 arpeggio, and then I'll resolve back to the A. So that's the sound, is that, you know, it's like that's the out of the box sound, is to go down 2 frets to my G, play the G major 7 arpeggio, or like we did before, just do that little, literally just the G arpeggio, but then resolve back to the A, like I just did, playing into the A major pentatonic scale. Now I'm going to end this part 1 video there. That's a lot of information. Now remember, if you're a premium member, you have access to the tablature, the jam track, the part 2 video where we go over the rest of it. And you can take all this stuff that we've talked about and practice it with a jam track. And then you can just go watch that interactive tab viewer and just review it that way. You don't have to listen to me kind of gab on and on about everything. But I do think it's important that you understand the context of all this stuff so that you can start to really use this stuff when you're improvising. You can do this, this lead. This is not impossible. There's nothing in this that's super technical. And I know it seems like a lot of notes, but if you can take all of these phrases and just break them down and learn it phrase by phrase, you can piece those phrases together and play them over a jam track. Okay, that's what we have for this video. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. I like to read through all of them. I always get encouraged when I see people that are having breakthroughs. So if you got a breakthrough, make sure you share that. Or if you've got anything that you're not sure about or confused by, leave those as well. So I do read through everything. All right, we will see you in the part 2 video where we'll go over the second half.